This is Converge, a podcast from Convera. Come with us as we shape the future of finance. Welcome to Converge. Today is our second episode focusing on content we recorded at Money 2020 in Las Vegas last month. This panel was a really exciting one entitled New Rails to New Worlds, Building Inclusive, Innovative Infrastructures for Global Payments. We put together a very impressive, exceptional group of female leaders to discuss what is being done on the ground in some of the most systemically important institutions, as well as the newer fintechs, to shape and implement the next generation of cross-border payment infrastructures. There's a lot going on there, so there, of course, was a lot to discuss. I'll let the content speak for itself, but you'll be hearing from Jennifer Parker, Convera's CCO, moderating this discussion, Kalyani Bhatia, the Global Head of Payments and PMI Go-to-Market for Swift, Ryan Rugg, Head of Digital Assets for Citi Treasury Trade Solutions, and Pegah Soltani, Head of Payments Products at Ripple. Please enjoy this discussion.
All right. Good afternoon. Excited to be here with you all today. Thanks for joining me on this podcast, this Converge podcast that we're doing today. So women in financial services have made a sizable and meaningful impact on an industry that is undergoing massive changes. As part of our transformation, we've gathered a group of exceptional female leaders here in the room with me today to discuss what is being done on the ground in some of the most systemically important institutions to shape and implement next-gen cross-border payments infrastructures. And that is why I'm so excited to be here with you all today. Given that, I'm going to jump right into some questions, if that's okay with each of you this morning or this afternoon. To start, Kalyani, I'll start with you. Swift has such a rich history in global payments. Could you introduce yourself and your role at Swift and perhaps share of some of Swift's challenges in moving the 12,000 banks into a new infrastructure environment that was driven by ISO 20022?
Thanks, Jennifer, and it's a pleasure to be here. So I run go-to-markets globally at Swift, and our job really is to work with our local communities, help them with our strategic objectives, which is all around everything payments. So you're right, we just recently migrated our full community of 12,000 banks to ISO 20022, which is a new messaging standard that's going to really upgrade the quality of data that we use as in the payments ecosystem. Challenges, absolutely. 12,000 banks, it's like the Mogul Army, and it does take a lot of thought and thinking of what these challenges are and how we can address them ahead of time before you actually hit a bump in the road. And things like, how do we get 12,000 banks educated? What do they need to do? How do we monitor them? How do we get them all testing? How do they go live? We've got 12,000 implementation plans and timeframes. How do we not introduce risk into the system? How do we make sure that we can accurately tell them how things are going from the community standpoint? It's a lot of really complex challenges that are part of any major program, but here we're talking about 12,000 participants.
And I know when we were chatting earlier today, you spoke a little bit about client co-creation and how Swift is really looking at that. For me, client co-creation is so important as we think about our businesses, the direction we're headed, really driving innovation forward and making sure we're building solutions our clients will actually use. So given that, can you expand a little bit more on what Swift is doing around this topic?
Yeah, so we've been innovating with the industry since as long as we've been a company, so it's really in our DNA, and we're really good about bringing our financial institutions together very often to talk about what are the challenges of the moment in the industry and how do we go about developing solutions that's really going to benefit the full financial system. And this is what we call purpose-led innovation or responsible innovation, which really means let's make sure we have a purpose, we're really trying to solve a clear problem, and with the solutions that we develop, it's adding value to the community, and it's guided by their needs. And a couple ways that we might do it is by doing some agile sprints, asking for feedback, opening up sandboxes, letting people test, and getting feedback that way as well.
So important. We're all familiar here in this room that instant payments are a key driver of change towards meeting new standards globally as well as customer expectations, but interoperability has been a challenge in particular for the application of these payment methods across borders. So Kalyani, can you speak to how Swift has responded to this challenge?
Yeah, so at Swift, we're really super laser focused on in making the improvements that were outlined by the G20 for 2027. And these are supported by some international organizations like Financial Stability Board and the Committee on Payments and Market Infrastructures. And it's really around 4 areas that we're trying to improve cross-border payments. It's all about speed, it's cost, it's transparency, and make sure that everyone has access to cross-border payments that wants to make one.
And as we think about just our clients in general in mind, there's no surprise that we're seeing this desire for speed, cost, transparency, programmability. Behind every business as a consumer, we all are surrounded with solutions as consumers to meet our needs and our desire to have speed and cost and transparency. Ryan, much of the work that you're doing centers around how digital assets and crypto-enabled technologies for you, Pega, that can be a huge part of this new world, driving better outcomes for customers to really just do that, have the speed they're looking for, drive down cost, provide transparency and programmability. Maybe Ryan, could you speak first towards some of the real world use cases recently announced at Citi?
Yeah, absolutely. So I joined Citi last year from IBM, and then prior to that from a fintech. And it really, joining Citi, what interests me was the network. We're in 95 different countries, and how do we truly drive that interoperability? So last month at Sibos, we announced Citi token services for cash and for trade. And what we did was we tokenized deposits, enabling our clients to have that 24/7, 365, always-on infrastructure. The first two branches we enabled was New York and Singapore, because the time zones, right? So if it's 5 p.m. on Friday and you're a large multinational account, normally you'd have to send money first thing in the morning to ensure that it got there by Friday evening, so it would be ready for open business on Monday. Well, now you can send money Friday night, you can send it Saturday, you can send it Sunday, really enabling that 24/7, 365. And these large treasurers, the pain point that we've heard is they have hundreds of bank accounts in multiple regions, and how do you create that frictionless commerce for that always-on infrastructure? That's what clients really want, is that always-on. And you think about COVID really exacerbated with what was going on and the need for this infrastructure. So we first announced the Citi token, and then secondly was for trade, Citi token services for trade. And really what that is we enabled a smart contract on top of the token. So in a smart contract, as we all know, is just a series of, if this happens, then do that. So in this case, it was if Maersk sends a ship through a canal and it receives a set of services, in this case, fuel, then release the funds automatically. So you don't have to wait for, if it's past 5 p.m. close for business hours or it's a weekend, the ship can automatically pass through. So you can think about the future, right? That infrastructure, having that always on, but smart management, smart treasury management, frictionless, and, being able to include it. So that was kind of the phase one. And really, we started our journey at Citi much earlier with the regulated liability network with the Fed. And that was really a collaborative industry effort where my colleagues, Swift and others, were involved in it. And how, as a industry, do we come together to solve some of these really difficult pain points? It's early days in the 80s, right? We're creating all these intranets, and how do you create a set of standards and work with industry bodies across it? No one entity can own it. If one entity owns it, it's not going to drive the efficiency and that global scale that we need.
Yeah, you're so right. It really does take, a partnership
100%.
As we look at, especially when you think about always on and really just around the clock, the ability to serve these clients' needs across all areas. So
Exactly.
yeah, that's great. So Pega, according to a report by Ripple and the Faster Payments Council, 97% of businesses surveyed believe that cryptocurrency and blockchain tech would have significant role enabling faster payments in the next 3 years. And more than 50% of surveyed payment executives believe that most merchants will accept crypto payments within 1 to 3 years. Can you talk about what Ripple has accomplished on the ground, such as addressing the liquidity challenges that hinder cross-border transactions globally, and what it will take to to see these use cases increase over time?
Yeah. At Ripple, from the start, we've focused on enterprises. And we started with the payments use case by building a network of financial institutions called RippleNet. This has since evolved into a platform for cross-border payments that offers crypto-native services like instant settlements and liquidity on top of this network. Today, we have hundreds of customers, including big banks, payment services, other non-bank financial institutions, and corporates using our product, with XRP at its core, being the best digital asset for movement of value. As it relates to cross-border payments, the pain points are well understood by the industry. They're slow, it can be high cost, and the systems are often outdated and antiquated with fragmented technology, which means it can be really hard to innovate on top of, and there's no transparency in the payment experience. Digital assets can solve these problems and make the experience better for everyone. But to do so at scale, meaning the $150 trillion of annual cross-border payment flows, there's key areas that we need to address from a payments perspective. That's around usability, regulation, and interoperability. Interoperability in particular is quite key because the networks and ways of moving value are becoming more fragmented. There's more venues, more instruments, and with increasing tokenization, even more ways to send money from one place to another. Blockchain technology and crypto is complementary to the existing rails and networks. It's not about replacing them, but blockchain and crypto working hand in hand with fiat rails to provide a better experience for everyone. In certain markets like G20, maybe it's easier and the pain is less acute. So if you're a large enterprise sending money from the US to Europe, you may not have the same pain points as if you were a smaller company or medium-sized company sending value from a country in South America to one in South Asia. And that's where crypto can really help in the long tail of currencies where liquidity doesn't exist abundantly today. As it relates to crypto liquidity, pre-2017, liquidity was really limited to a handful of exchanges and was only a few $1 million a day. That has dramatically changed over the last few years. And a key driver of this has been the development of on and off ramps, which is how you get money or fiat into crypto and how you get crypto out back to fiat. Because today still the end consumer or the end user may want fiat or does want fiat at large. And the development of these on and off ramps has really enabled flourishing of crypto liquidity. At Ripple, we've been building this for many years, and our off-ramp network today covers 90% of the FX market globally. We've also focused on the enterprise use case to help crypto liquidity reach full scale. A lot of the on and off ramps traditionally or historically developed were focused on retail or institutional investing or trading, but that doesn't serve cross-border payments or point of sale use cases or other ones that really get crypto to full scale. When we look at crypto liquidity, we look at two factors to judge the usability for cross-border payments. One is how large is that payment that you can send instantly using crypto? And the second is, are you getting a cheaper rate than you would with traditional FX fiat rails? And the data that we've pulled shows that both those things are proving to be true with RippleNet. So aside from blockchain and crypto's native characteristics to help payments around transparency, being global in nature, censorship resistant, and low cost, there's now also global liquidity to support the payments use case at scale.
And, with regards to what you mentioned around digital assets, Ryan, coming to you just for a second, you previously mentioned when we spoke earlier about banks wanting cross-border compatibility versus their own token for only their network. How is Citi looking at this challenge and what they offer customers? And then Peg, I'll come back to you because I'd love to hear the solutions Ripple is working on here as well.
Yeah, before we even had Citi Token Services, we we're leading the initiative with the regulated liability network with the Fed. So really working with the industry, for the industry, but also with regulators, which has been such a critical, piece of the puzzle in this path, because like due to lack of clarity from regulation in this space, it really predefines what like a highly regulated institution like Citi can do. So really partnering with regulators in this space as they evolve their thinking and kind of move forward. And that's what like the RLN, kind of set out to do. Worked with a consortium of banks to really solve for this cross-border, cross-bank liquidity that, no one wants just a Citi token or an X token. They want to work with the industry for the industry and really co-developing that network. So, and we open sourced it. We open source the findings from a technical, legal, regulatory, like kind of framework on how to move this forward. Because what we want to get to is like a network of networks, it's for the industry, by the industry, but really where you can provide that, holy grail of atomic settlement, not actually just, moving the payment, but actually settling assets first payments, DVP on the same network. And like, that's what, kind of the goal is what we're working towards, but really working with the industry on this.
Really important work. Pega?
Yeah, I mean, in the recent months, there's been a ton of examples of major companies adopting blockchain technology, including Citi's new token service for institutional clients, as well as JP Morgan looking for blockchain-based solutions using their deposit token, and Solana partnering with Shopify and Visa for the merchant use case, and of course, PayPal even launching their own stablecoin. The ability to settle payments instantly across borders with a lesser need for a middleman has huge benefits for all stakeholders in the cross-border payment value chain. The common trend within all this is that institutions are recognizing that speed of settlement is super important for cross-border payments. And it's really hard to replicate the speed without using crypto technology, unless you're pre-positioning a lot of capital and destination accounts around the world, like the Nostr-Vostr system today, or you're leveraging credit, which then exposes you to counterparty risk. So institutions using tokenized deposits or crypto technology can realize benefits, but if that technology is only used within their borders and within the institution, the benefits are only marginal. You really fully realize the advantage when you use the tokenized assets outside of a single bank or a single payment company, and can go between the different networks and break down the walled gardens and silos that exist in traditional finance today. To do so, we believe that you need a neutral public crypto, and that's what we've been focused on at Ripple from the early days. Our solution uses XRP as a bridge to go between two fiat currencies, which provides instant settlements within as short as 3 seconds. So no more waiting around, not a lot of worries around cost, and it's a very secure solution with limited volatility because it is so fast. We've focused on customer pain points as it relates to remittance, then expanded into B2B supplier payments, and then treasury use cases as well. And as our customers continue to use our network, we're seeing new use cases emerge with respect to moving payments.
Yeah, it's really great work that's happening through the organizations. I think it just goes back to what you mentioned earlier, Ryan, and the need for all companies and the partnerships to come together to really solve these pain points that we see with our clients. Kalyani, Swift has played such an important role in helping cross-border organizations and banks interoperate smoothly. What does the next generation of Swift look like? And will you work together with other types of solutions that we heard like with Citi and Ripple to really tackle these issues?
So great question. So first, let me describe the global response we're seeing on the interoperability topic, and it's really in 3 separate phases. So phase 1 was all about domestic schemes. So you've got, that was the first group that really said, all right, let's try and see how we can reduce friction, how can we get to interoperability, and that's where you have examples like FedNow. You have some great use cases in India with UPI and with Pix in Brazil. Then the next phase was really about countries coming together, so inter-regional, and really discussing how do we hook up our domestic schemes together in a cross-border aspect. And there you have things like Luna in the Middle East, and you've got BRICS. And then the third phase, which definitely is very much in its infancy, it's intra-regional, And this is about different regions coming together and talking about how do we connect up together to get to interoperability. And there you've got IXB and Nexus as some examples. And you're constantly seeing different groups in APAC and the Middle East pop up in the news. So at Swift, we're super interested about the cross-border aspects of phase 2 and phase 3. We want to make sure that the industry isn't creating too many digital islands, and we want to be the network of network. And of course, we're very agnostic as to the form of money and what that's going to take and the actual systems or mode of moving it around. And we really want to focus on interoperability between existing and emerging networks or across asset classes. So we really try to keep, up to date what's happening in the market to make sure that, whether we are participating and supporting different initiatives where possible, we do our own experimentations. And you're absolutely right? So we talked with Pega and with Ryan on tokenized assets and CBDCs and doing a lot of experimentation in both kind of areas as the market, has identified those as key next steps of what the next way into interoperability. And so if you look at tokenization, we started off last year looking at how we can be the single point person hooking up tokenized platforms to different payment platforms. And now we're working with a group of banks who are actually doing some experiments to see if they can use their existing Swift infrastructure to instruct the value of tokenized assets across multiple private and public blockchains. CBDCs we've been working in for a little bit longer. We started off creating a connector on the CBDC side, between DLT-based and fiat-based systems using existing financial rails. Then we did some sandboxing again with a small group of people just to see, does this make sense? Is this the right way? And feedback from that group was, yes, it makes sense, and let's continue on experimenting. Then we had some central banks actually say, let me take your CBDC connector and we'll put it into our infrastructure and start doing some testing. And then we just opened up a second phase of sandbox testing with a larger group of banks and central and commercial banks that are looking at different use cases now and around FX and liquidity.
This interoperability challenge is definitely a primary issue that many have when orchestrating payments. But there's also, Convera is really trying to play a role with our customers as we think about the holistic challenges that our clients face around risk and regulatory and compliance concerns that our companies have. And that's a role that we're playing in that space. I want to shift just for a second to corporate responsibility, social impact, something that's near and dear to my heart. As I mentioned earlier while we were together, I'd love to really understand what you all are doing as you think about the future we envision to better serve our customers, whether it's in the ESG space, if it's internally in our employee workforce. I'd love to hear a little bit more. I'll start with you, Ryan.
Yeah, no, it's really important. And, if you think about the way at least blockchain and technology emerged was really for, to provide the underserved, frictionless commerce on a kind of always on basis, no matter what your socioeconomic kind of situation was, kind of being able to provide that always on infrastructure, which, is one of the promises of the future that, we're looking to kind of enable this.
What about you, Liability?
Sure. So our company mission on ESG is really to empower the financial community to help as many people as we can benefit from a more inclusive digital economy. And so that whether that's the services we support or the products and services that we develop, we want to make sure that we're having a positive impact on our local communities. And really, when you talk about 12,000 banks, 200 countries, just think of the positive impact that we can bring when we get everyone together. Now, we're a global member-owned cooperative. I think there's two different roles that we play. We have our own as a company, and what does that mean to run a responsible, sustainable company, as well as, there are responsibilities that we have to our member banks, and how can we bring them together and talk about DE&I and ESG. We did a lot of that at Sibos this last September, and there's many initiatives that we do with the community to bring these kind of industry challenges to light.
What about you, Pega at Ripple?
Yeah. As Ryan mentioned, one of the major benefits of crypto, particularly for payments, is that it promotes economic growth and financial inclusion. and allows more people to participate in the financial system, even those without bank accounts. Ripple's mission and vision from the beginning has been a world without economic borders. And that means that value or currency should move as freely and instantly and cheaply as information does today. As a mission-driven company with employees and customers in dozens of countries around the world, we're always working to promote socially responsible use cases for blockchain and use crypto to advance financial access for underbanked around the world. A core testament to this is we started the Ripple Impact Initiative, which is a force for good, in 2018. And a few ways that we help financial inclusion and socially responsible use cases is by forging industry-leading partnerships around sustainability, funding innovative projects around financial inclusion, and empowering people that work at Ripple to make a difference. To date, we've donated over $170 million in philanthropic funding and have rolled up our sleeves to collaborate with leading NGOs, partners, and universities, all in the effort to accelerate financial inclusion globally.
It's really great work that's happening in each of your companies. I do think it's incumbent upon all of us business leaders to really make sure that we're intentional about our focus here. I know for myself, we're looking at really our workforce around creating a diverse and inclusive culture within the organization. We've hired some strong female leaders at the executive committee level. We're looking throughout the organization to make sure it's representative of the clients we serve across all of our geographies across the world. And so it's something that continues to be, I think, ongoing topic, and something that we're just going to have to continue to repeat and recommit over and over again before we're able to fully get to a place where we're all happy doing that. One of my favorite things to discuss with other female senior leaders is the topic of our career journeys, especially in financial services. I'd love to hear from each of you about your journey in particular, and any takeaways you have for our listeners to really think through, especially if they're aspiring females, more junior in their career. Anything that you have to offer, I'd love to hear. I'll start with you, Kellyanne.
Sure, no problem. So I truly believe women are extremely resilient. And if I think about myself, I'm a people pleaser. I put everyone else first before myself, and definitely undervalue myself. And I think that's a trend among many women. And just a little bit about my journey. So I'm an engineer out of school. I had a career in tech. I had a career in finance. And in my generation, not a lot of women, certainly not any women of color in school or in the careers that I've had. And I also have the ethnic card and culture card in my deck, where I've had to turn down opportunities because my family said, who's going to look after my kids? Who's going to look after your husband? And I had to reinvent my career 3 times, one only by choice. One was marriage. I followed my husband. I had to shut down my Big Six consulting career after 10 years and moved to New York and restart. And then 10 years later, 9/11 happened, restarted again. And then the last time was really 10 years ago, when I kind of looked at myself and said, I'm just really not happy with where I am, the choices that I've made. And it was a conscious decision to put myself first. So that would be kind of my first takeaway is believe in yourself. Surround yourself by people who are going to build you up, that you have that network of people that you can ask some of the crazy questions about, does this offer look right? Is this situation okay? And then the second kind of thing I'd like to share is, when we look at job recs, women in general, we don't apply unless we meet every single criteria that's listed. And why is that? And I see that a lot in women I manage, women I mentor, in my own 2 adult daughters. My older one is job hunting right now, and I see it over and over again. So, it's really about just telling it to yourself, and I'm happy to say it for you. Go for it. We believe in you, and you're remarkable.
It's great words of wisdom. Thank you. What about you, Pegah?
Yeah, for me, I think one of the key things is that you can't predict or plan where you're going to end up. And that's a really good thing, because the best opportunities are the ones that you didn't think were possible. I started my career trading in traditional finance. I knew very little about tech. I knew nothing about product management, and I definitely knew nothing about crypto. And actually, when I first heard about crypto, I was very skeptical and didn't really believe in it. Fast forward to today, I'm leading a product role at a crypto tech company solving real world use cases. So my only regret is not buying Bitcoin earlier when I first learned about it. But the point is, I could never plan for the industries and functions I worked in, and it changed so many times that all I could control was the people that I was surrounding myself in and how I was performing in that specific role at the time. Throughout my career, I've also held positions in traditionally male-dominated industries and segments. There was a study by BCG, or Boston Consulting Group, this year that shared in Web3 companies, less than 30% of the employees are actually female. And where there are female employees, it tends to be clustered in non-technical roles like human resources, PR, or marketing. So with the opportunity I have at Ripple to lead product in a crypto company, I can provide a unique perspective for others in terms of how to penetrate and close the divide in traditionally male-dominated functions. So my key takeaways are really to embrace change, to not be scared, to jump into the unknown, even if it feels super risky, and to really ignore conventions around how things should be done or must be done, and trust yourself and surround yourself with inspiring people that support you, and your career will naturally take the right path forward.
I really like those. What about you, Ryan?
So I think about like my career and, where I started. And I think, when I first entered the workforce, I thought my career would be a straight trajectory. It was like, I was a computer science, finance major, similar, started out in TradFi and then kind of moved into the startup blockchain space, I would say, in my early 30s. But, when I first, unless I knew the answer to your point, I wouldn't have a seat at the table. I wouldn't raise my hand. I felt as though some of the opportunities were also passed over to me, and having that confidence in myself, and also, being very unafraid, not unapologetic to stand up for what I believed in and what I said. And now working for a company where, Jane Fraser was the first, female CEO at a large, at Citibank, has really even been more eye-opening. Seeing what she's doing to the culture is really permeating down to all the different levels. Having a voice, and it's not just for females, it's for all employees across the organization. And I think that's so important to have leaders out there that are also very outspoken and in paving the way for the future, because I also have two girls, and want to make sure that to enable them, and also to show that when you put your mind to something, you can do it. I happen to working in emerging tech and innovation. It's there's no clear path, as Steve Jobs says, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back. Having to be able to put yourself out there, and it's okay to fail. As my colleague Naveed says, it's just your first attempt in learning. And then innovation is a constant set of resets, right? Where it's you try one thing and then you have to pivot, what's going to work, And in digital assets and crypto and all this entire space, if it was easy, and it would be mainstream by now. It's not. There's a lot of lack of clarity in this space, but what it enables with that always on infrastructure, and knowing the future generations, what they're looking to do, and thinking my big joke with my daughter is I can offer her $10 to do anything, and she says no. I offer $10 in gaming money, and it's you would think it was gonna change the world. So it's their mindset is very different. And how are we future-proofing our infrastructure? How are we keeping the dollar as a reserve currency? How are we working with regulators? So it's I think having these different perspectives from different individuals is really enabling.
I really like the takeaways that you all shared. For me, it's very similar, being fearless, which is, to your point, Kalyani, it's going for that role, even if you may not check every single box, because we know our male counterparts are not thinking about half the boxes that might be on there, right? It's being unapologetic, not keeping your head down and just working really hard, but taking the moment to look up and see where you can engage, where you can be more present, where you can lean in, where you can make sure your voice is heard. Earlier in my career, same way, I thought that the secret to success was just head down, work really hard, do your job really well. While those things are important, if you don't stop to look up, lean in, speak up, then you can get passed by, in my experience as a woman in financial services and in the tech space. And then lastly, for me, it's really around making sure that you're willing to do what others aren't willing to do. And what I mean by that is really just if there's an opportunity, whether some may think it's beneath them to do it or something that feels outside of your comfort zone, it may not fall directly in line with your role or project that you would normally be working on. I just feel like that allows you to grow and to learn more and expand your own knowledge base. And that's been really helpful for me in my career trajectory. So with that, I will just say, I really appreciate your time here today through the panel and here on the podcast with our listeners. I think, as we mentioned and discussed throughout the day, it's really going to take partnership between our businesses and our companies to drive the change and really to hone in on the innovation we need to see to actively serve our clients. And then it's going to take all of us, a diverse workplace, a group of women, those of different backgrounds, race, ethnicity, gender, et cetera, to really drive the businesses forward. So thank you for your time this morning, and look forward to talking to you all next time.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Thank you.